Hi, it's Dr. Fox, licensed psychologist in the state of Texas. And in this video, what we're going to talk about is not surrendering to shame. And I think shame is something that is so broad. It's all over the world. And it's this internalized sense of really self-hatred, of feeling less than. And I see it a lot in my clients. Shame is something we deal with quite a bit, but you can push back on it. And this channel is dedicated to optimism and adaptive strategies, and we're going to talk about not only what shame is and how it may manifest and how I see it in my clients, but also what you can do about it. How can you push back on that shame? So let's get to it. So like, share, and subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. That's great. I have another channel focused on personality, specifically personality disorders. So check that out if you'd like, and let's get started. So shame, a lot of the clients that I talk to and work with have this intense internalized sense of shame that's not only about who they are, but also their behaviors, also with how they see the world, also with how they interact with the world. And a lot of times shame leads to what's called secondary thinking. That secondary thinking is, so you engage in a behavior and then you're like, should I? Would I? Could I have done that? Should I have done that? I don't know if I should have done that. I could have done that. Did I do it this way? Was it this way? And it becomes like these two sides, right, that start to battle each other. And as they're battling each other, you start to feel less than. You start to feel worse. Now, shame has a best friend. Best friend is guilt. And these two are always together, right? So shame spawns guilt. Sometimes guilt spawns shame. And that shame becomes internalized, makes you feel less than. And what happens is that we have this odd belief. And as I've worked with folks in different parts of the world, I see this pretty consistent. It becomes a belief that when I have felt enough shame, I have felt enough guilt, and I've put myself through this painful installment plan, that I've paid enough in shame, guilt, self-hatred, self-doubt, feeling less than, then I am permitted, and it's not like someone externally says, yes, you're permitted to now go back to your life and live normally. But what happens is that it's a psychological process that you go through, that when you feel low enough, then you're able to go back to that level of homeostasis. Now, there's a lot of folks who live their life carrying this massive amount of shame. A lot like Atlas, right? They carried the world on his shoulders, and it's like that, but this is their shame atlas. It's their shame world that they carry with them. It becomes very internalized. And when it becomes internalized, a lot of times we end up developing these interpersonal systems and circles around our life, the people in our life, and sometimes they reap satisfaction based on making you feel shameful, making you feel less than. Sometimes we do have to assess different people in our life, the relationships we have, and if a relationship is built on the trading of shame, so, you're each trying to get along, but then you shame each other based on what you say or what you do or how you feel or how you act or whatever it may be, that you feel less than, then the idea is that somehow you're going to rise up and rise above this sense of internalized shame and low self-worth and feeling less than. The reality is that doesn't really happen, because you'll never make anyone feel bad enough to do good things. And I want to say that again, be sure you heard it, is that you'll never make anyone, including yourself, feel bad enough to do good things. I don't believe that we need to shame ourselves, guilt ourselves, feel less than enough, that then we're able to go back to a level of functioning where we don't have to hurt ourselves, hate ourselves, do things that we don't want to do, that take away from our components of self-worth and self-value. We don't want to do that. And so now that we kind of have an idea of like how this shame kind of manifests, what can you do about it? How can you deal with your shame? How can you lessen your shame? Well, the first one, it's going to sound easy, but tends to be very complex, but it's also direct. And a direct way to push back against that sense of shame, which can sometimes be really, really deep, like I get it, but it's pushing back, and that is using those positive affirmations. And in saying that, you're like, oh, everybody says that. You ever wonder why everybody says that? Because what we say to ourselves has value, is that human beings are adaptive. is that when we say things over and over, or we do things over and over, they become habitual. It becomes internalized. Because a lot of folks, and you may have done it with your shame as well, is that as you've done it, as you've supported, built up shame, maybe indirect, could be direct too, but as you've done it, you've supported this sense of shame and you've built it, you've internalized it. So now it's kind of nestled inside, that it becomes a part of how you function and see your world. But it eats away at you over time. And that's what we want to do. And those positive affirmations push back. Here's how to do it. So when you're brushing your teeth, right? Usually we're looking in the mirror, right? When we brush our teeth, we kind of brush our teeth. When you're brushing your teeth, right? I want you to say something positive about yourself. It doesn't have to be this thing of grandeur. Oh, I'm the best person. It doesn't have to be that. It can be, you know what? Today you did something nice. What was it? It could be that you held the door open for someone. It could be that maybe you said something nice. You sent a friendly text. And if you can't think of anything while you're brushing your teeth, multitask time, right? Then send a friendly text to someone, right? Put something positive out there, but do something, say something positive about yourself as well, right? Use those positive affirmations. Maybe you're nice. Maybe you're handsome. Maybe you're pretty. Maybe you're athletic. Maybe whatever it is. But say that positive thing about yourself. And that's sort of where we start. We start to unearth this sense of shame. You're going to feel awkward and uncomfortable at first. But have you ever thought, isn't it weird that saying negatives are easy to tolerate than positives? And that's because you may have conditioned yourself to accept shame, guilt, doubt, fear, right, and feeling less than. But if you're watching this video, that means that you want to push back on that sense of shame, resist that sense of internalized shame, and stop those shame spirals. And those positive affirmations can do it. Another component is that you want to bring this sense of shame into the light, right? You want to tell yourself, hey, wait, I'm shaming myself, right? Now, Brené Brown talks a lot about this. And I think that bringing it out, right, and discussing it, addressing it, and talking about it, maybe with a mental health provider or a close friend who doesn't shame you, who doesn't use that shame against you, is very important, because shame breeds in the dark. So what we want to do is we want to bring it out into the light. What is it? Discuss it, talk about it, and challenge it. And remember, right, if you're doing something and it doesn't hurt anyone else, it's not hurting you, it's not a detriment, you really have to sort of objectively kind of balance what that is, and is it worth feeling less than, shame, guilt, doubt, all of that. Another component is to distance yourself, right, is separate self-definition from the things that you do. Now, certainly the things that we do are certainly important, right, that they can reinforce certain perspectives about ourselves and how we interact with our world. But if you're doing something that makes you feel less than, I think it's worth not only examining, but questioning, is it something that you need to do, and should you keep doing it? And it's about exploring that. I can't explore that for you, but you can. And looking at that balance, is it worth continuing exploring? Is it worth continuing engaging in this behavior that makes you feel less than, because it may be encouraging that sense of shame, guilt, and feeling less than? So we want to look at that behavior that reinforces that sense of shame and find other ways to maybe get that needs met, right? Find other ways of functioning that may actually decrease that sense of shame and help yourself grow and develop. And lastly, what we want to do is I want you to identify the things that activate that sense of shame. What are those things that make you feel shameful, guilty, less than? And those are the things that we want to work on to change, right? So as videos come out on this channel, this is something that we're going to talk about. Looking at those triggers, looking at those activations, managing them effectively, pushing back on those things to lessen that sense of shame, guilt, doubt, depression, anxiety, other issues, so you can push back, do things differently, and see yourself differently. That's what this channel is all about. And I hope that you find this video helpful. Please leave any comments you may have in the comment section. That would be great. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out my other channel if you want. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.